man hours. And it's my privilege to do this work for the Lord, but it can be time consuming. I was working on a prophecy quite late. And as I was preparing it, a thought came to my mind. And the prophecy I was working on was lockstep. It was talking about the rise of the beast government and its Nazi tendencies. I became curious to know more about the type of marching that I see in the visions, this type of marching that Hitler popularized called lockstep. And so I went to go and look for the Russians. I went to go and look to see if the Russians march like this, and they do. But as the video was playing on YouTube, I saw another thing of the North Koreans. So I clicked that video, and I really wish that I had not, because the Russian soldiers were a lot. But I don't think I understood just how many people they have over there in North Korea, how multitudinous these people are. When I saw the number of the soldiers marching, when I saw them doing that crunching boot march and how nobody was out of step, I was like, Lord, we are doomed. We are finished. It was just a conversation between me and God. So this wasn't supposed to be out, but it did come out when he told me to publish it. I said, there's no way, God, that we will be able to fight these people. And I was looking at women. Marching. It was a video of females. They are what is on the cover of this prophecy, carrying guns. And the Lord just interrupted my thoughts. And he said to me, there is a third nation that I never told you about that will come here on the side of China and Taiwan. So the nations that God has shown me is Russia and China and Ukraine with Russia and Taiwan with China. And now the Lord was saying here that Korea would come. And it wasn't just any Korea he was talking about. The Lord was talking about a unified Korea. And I will just read what he said. There is a third nation I've never told you about. The nation that will come here to invade with China and Taiwan is Korea. It will be a unified Korea. The North and the South will join hands as brothers, and they will strike covenant over an agreement. They will become one nation. Brother will fly down the slopes of the mountain to meet brother. These people have suffered a lot. They've been separated for generations, but now they will strike hands in agreement. They will come down the slopes of the mountains and hug each other, and they will become one people. They will hug one another with tears, and after that, they will turn as one man and destroy America. And the Lord gave me a vision right there. And I saw two snowy mountains. Excuse me, please. A mountain here and a mountain here. And two brothers began to run down the slopes of the mountain, and they met in the valley. One brother was wearing this red, typical Asian pajama that we can remember mostly from the Bruce Lee movies. So that traditional male pajama thing, one was wearing red, and that was representing, I think, South Korea. And then one was wearing black, and that was representing North Korea. And they came down where the two mountains had a valley, and they began to do some kind of traditional dance, greeting one another. And and they hugged each other, and the tears were flowing almost like cartoon levels, because I saw this vision in animation, a very beautiful animation. And God said that these two nations are going to strike hands. To strike hand means to have an agreement. He says they're going to have a covenant. South Korea and North Korea are going to come up with some kind of covenant, some kind of treaty that brings them back together as one. They are no longer going to be a separated Korea. There will be an official document, he said. They will sign a peace treaty concerning unity, concerning an agreement to now begin sharing data. They will start to share and trade information again, and there will be cooperation. He says this treaty will concern many other things of geopolitics and stuff like that. They will talk about agriculture. They will talk about farming. They're probably going to talk about trade as well. They will work together. And he said that the borders will be open. There will be free traffic between the borders of these two countries without any of this extreme level of border police monitoring and the separatist doctrines anymore. So North Korea is definitely the side that has the separatist doctrine, because South Korea is just as liberal as you want to get out there in Asia. And the Lord was telling me that this would really benefit old people. because this relationship reunification is going to be a very important part of North and South Korea in the future. He said that many old people last saw each other when they were teenage boys. And this picture of two brothers coming down the mountains, hugging, doing a traditional dance, and then grasping one another and crying, this is a picture of exactly what's going to happen. As the old people who were set apart by this division finally get to be able to travel and see one another and patch things up before they die. That was the exact phrase God used. He said, a lot of people need to patch things up before they die. They need to make peace before death. And so there's going to be a lot of traveling back and forth across these open borders to fix family relations, especially. He said that people will no longer care about the political reasons that they separated. So, people when they're young, they're very into their politics, and they can end up hating the next person who doesn't agree with them. But he said that these people have aged without access to their families, aged without access to brothers, sisters. They've had children. That child has never seen the other side of their family. And so he said all the fire of political activism, political reasons, whatever, they have stopped caring who was right and who was wrong in politics. And they have been spending the last few decades grieving about their fact that their family is over that dividing wall. And so God said that the old people in North Korea and South Korea will be the happiest to see this reunification happening. And as the political and the social reunification happens, families will be reunified at last. Now, as wonderful as this prophecy was, my brain was still stuck on those marching soldiers that I had seen. And so I tried to bring God's attention back to my thing. It's great that they will be unified, but at the same time, Lord, have you seen the soldiers? Lord, look at those people. They are like ants. These people will destroy in America. And then the Lord's answer to me was this. Please listen. This is the second part of the prophecy. Great rape will occur here. America will be torn as with bloody teeth. She will be uncovered in war, and great rape and molestation will occur here. America has done my people a hard injustice. Through slavery, she made them naked, and she desecrated them, even though they cried for mercy. Atrocities were done here. The fields were fields of blood, and their cries raised up to me from the ground. Now it will be done to her. The kings of the East will come here, and America will suffer rape and molestation. As she has done to others, do unto her. Pour her a double dose of her own medicine, and let it be served to her. I am the Lord. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Render to her just as she rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she mix double for her. Revelation 18:5-6. So let me go back to this part. I have made this prophecy called Sent for Their Flesh. That prophecy was so long and so graphic that I was forced to break it up into 3 parts because I saw a main scene and then 2 main actors. The main scene that I saw was that Vladimir Putin was sitting at a meeting. He was sitting at a meeting, and all these countries that I've mentioned, Ukraine and Taiwan and China, Russia itself were there, and quite a few of these other smaller countries that used to be Soviet bloc countries. They were at a private meeting, and the most important thing about this meeting is that there was not a single Western power there. There was no Britain, there was no France, there was no Italy, there was definitely no America. These people were having a private meeting, and they were saying, well, our economies are growing, and we have this and we have that, and where will we get the labor from? We need labor. Where will we get workers from? And China was saying we're growing so fast. We need more workers. We need people out in the agricultural fields. And Vladimir Putin was sitting there, and he was quiet, and they were talking here and there. And the smaller countries, they were just happy to be in the room. Ukraine wasn't even saying much. And then he just thundered out, "Send for their flesh." And it seemed to be the answer that all of these countries were waiting for. They were like, Like, why didn't we think of this? And that flesh they were talking about is the flesh of America, to come and be workers, to come and be sex workers, to come and be slaves, to come and be chattel, exactly as America had done to the Africans centuries before. And so God was saying here that this uncovering that comes in war, we know that war brings brutality because women just can't fight like men do. So in a war, the people who are always hurt the most, if we are just adults about it, is women and children. But God is saying here that rape and molestation will be a particular aspect of this invasion, and it is a direct repayment for the injustices done to African Americans and also to Native Americans. And since I started, whenever the Lord would give me this message, I've never shied away from it, even though it always causes backlash and outbursts and all kinds of things. If I cannot be objective with the prophecies that I get from God, then what exactly is the point of my calling? The material that the Lord gives me is not just material that anyone could handle, and I owe it to Him to bring it out, because prophecy is not celestial talking to the nations. Prophecy is God using the mouth of an individual that He has called, trained, and believe it or not, very strongly admonished behind the scenes. The training that I've received from God and the admonishments that I receive from Him are not the things that will come out in the final video. What comes out in the final video is the estimation that God brings to every nation for its crimes. And that estimation is always just. It is always perfect. It is always balanced, because before I was born, or those in this current generation hearing these judgments were born, God was alive, He was awake, He was watching, and He was taking meticulous notes. So after the Lord takes notes, it's not me or anyone else who is going to come and say, but why? But why? And I will continue with this prophecy so you can hear the things that God despises about how this matter is being handled at present. It says that America has done these two groups, and especially the black slaves, a hard injustice. A hard injustice to make them come to labor in bonded labor, to rape the women without any regard for the fact that many of them had tried to put their broken lives together again, left behind their husbands, left behind their sons, and married men here, and then to have that marriage desecrated by an overseer or by the father in the house who owned them, or lending a woman for a weekend to his brother, or bringing her in and saying, well, one of my guests took a fancy to you as he was parking his house. We must not gloss over these things. We must not pretend that these things didn't happen. God says the fields were fields of blood, and I myself am tired of seeing visions of these things. The Lord speaks of these things far often, actually, America. Then He sends me to speak of them. If He sent me to bring this type of prophecy every time He spoke of it, it would be very difficult for the hearers of this channel. Indeed. Fields of blood where people were taken, where young women as young as 8, 9, 10, 11. You have children at home. Do you want to imagine your young daughter under the unwanted attention and the unwanted physical force of a man, simply because he does not see her as a person, simply because he views her as a momentary place to exercise lust? And it was never the kind of tender lust that married people shared. No, it was brutal, bruising lust that sometimes resulted in loss of life. Teen pregnancy started with the African Americans and the Native American women because it happened by force. And God says that Russia will come here, and the way He put it, will rape America and molest America because she did it to others. Do it unto her a double dose of the medicine. Serve unto her, because I am the Lord. And so this is what God is saying, that He will punish this nation for slaveries, because one of the things He brought up is that the atrocities are methodically being erased from the history books, and they are being replaced with another truth, a much more convenient retelling of U.S. history. And you have only to look at what they're sending the children home with now. Many parents in anger, have posted pictures of the history books that their children are getting now in grade 6 and grade 7, where you see the slaves dressed so smartly and so well. And the writing actually says things like many slaves got on very well with their masters. And it was